Is that right?
Well, hi. Look at this gorgeous new theater. Oh my God, beautiful, beautiful. Well, we're so happy to be here. And we thank you all for joining us. It's a treat. We've been enjoying our Left on 10th, and it's nice to sort of come out of the theater and bring some of it to you. So thank you for being here. And Tom, wherever you are, thank you for your lovely introduction. And to everyone at the 92nd Street Y, which is what I'm used to calling it, 92Y, okay, for putting this wonderful event together and graciously welcoming us all. Thank you also to Rose Caiola. And I can't see out there, but I think you're here, and you've been a great sponsor of ours. Thank you. Thank you so much. One of the last times I was on this stage, it was for a reunion reading of Love, Loss, and What I Wore, written by Delia and Nora. And it was also a very exciting time for us because we were experiencing a wonderful success, and Love, Loss, and What I Wore still goes on around the country and, in fact, around the world, believe it or not. And what was so great about Love, Loss is that it told personal stories that were universal. And I believe that Left on 10th, while it tells a most personal story, Delia's story, is also very universal. So a few quick thoughts before we begin our conversation, and then we'll do questions at the end. When I first spoke to Delia about her beautiful memoir that this play is based on, it was really a beautiful read for me. It was, laughing, crying, everything in the middle, an emotional roller coaster. But she thought that maybe it could be a play, and she asked me, did I think it could be a play? And I said, I do. I really think it could be a play because it has everything that you want in good storytelling and an emotional punch, which God knows it does have. And somehow for me, I always thought it was the blend of You've Got Mail and wit with a happy ending. So that's the perfect theatrical combination. If they had a child, I think it would be Left on 10th. I don't know, I've just been thinking about that. So while Susan Stroman is not with us tonight, I just want to give a shout out to her. She is a magnificent director of this play. And when yes, woohoo! Yeah. And when Stro, as she is called, and Delia met, I think it was love at first sight and certainly became a more mature, wonderful relationship. Delia's journey, as you may know if you've read the book or if you've yet seen the play, touches on everything that's important to all of us. Relationships with our friends, with our family, the need for bravery and hope and courage in our daily lives, and the courage to take those second chances, and borrowing from her own title, the most powerful emotions of all, love and loss. So I'd like to start by asking Delia to tell us about the genesis of the play, how Beshert plays a part in everything that's happened around this play, and also how was it to revisit this chapter of your life, which by all accounts was challenging, difficult, scary, and yet you sat down to recount it all.
Well, I was about 2 years post, just if you don't know the story, I feel madly, and I lost my beloved husband and was quite lost, and then trying to disconnect his phone, Verizon put me in Verizon hell. And so I wrote a piece about it, and it turns out everyone hates Verizon, so I got tons of mail. And one of the letters was from a man named Peter Rutter, and we had had 2 dates, oh God, when I was 18. And I didn't remember him, but the letter was very charming. So we started to communicate, and we fell absolutely stunningly head over heels in love, first just in email. So of course I thought, because I wrote You've Got Mail, I have fallen into my own romantic comedy, I'm making jokes to everyone about it. And then the next thing I know, I got diagnosed with a fatal disease, with AML, which is a fierce leukemia. And Peter asked me to marry him, and we got married in the hospital. And I survived. And and the odds were against me. And I had a cutting edge treatment and I survived. And it's very traumatic to go through that whole thing. In fact, I just want to say I had a root canal this week. And all day I'm saying to Peter, I'm going to have a bone marrow transplant. And I said, no, that's not what I'm having. I'm having a root canal. So the trauma it just seeps into your brain. Anyway, so I was trying to get past this, and it just so happened that COVID came along, and we couldn't go anywhere. So I started writing it. And I'd made a lot of notes, which I never had normally done, but that time in my life, losing Jerry and falling in love, had been so powerful that I'd kept myself sane by making notes. And I began to look at it all, and then I just started writing. And I sent for my hospital records. There were 6,000 pages. I lost interest in about 4,000, but there were hysterical things in it. Really, like, patient can't recognize her own palm. I mean, things that I just couldn't even imagine. And I was interviewing all my girlfriends and my friend Mitch about what I was doing in the hospital, because I had no memories of it. And Mira said, I remember 6 days in the ICU and no recall on it, right? Mira said to me, well, you ripped off all your clothes. So that was just thrilling to hear. I mean, it was so boring there, you know? So it was like a treasure hunt, you know? And then I started to write the book. And the book, I'm a dramatist, and I knew I had lived a perfect drama. The loss, the love again, the horrible horizon, which is so universal, you know, and then the threat, and then survival. I mean, what could be better? So I actually had a great time writing it. I'm sorry, embarrassed to say, because it was so tortured to live. And then after I was done, I thought, you know, I also think this is a play, and that's when I went to see Daryl, because I hadn't written a big full-length play like this, and I just thought, I could try that.
And we agreed.
Yeah.
We agreed. So Julianna and Peter, how is it to embody the lives of two people that are living and in the room at every rehearsal, and often throughout our tech and performances? How did you find them within you and the story within you? And were there pieces of your own personal life that were woven together to find Delia and Peter? There you go.
Interesting.
Well,
Did you like that question?
okay.
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 Well, it was kind of an extraordinary confluence, to use a word that Peter Rutter would use, or
In the play.
Had Jung been Jewish, it would have been Beschert instead of confluence. But this extraordinary story that Delia lived, she's also an extraordinary writer. And those things don't often coexist. And so we had this sort of blessed event of this miraculous story that she just described to you, and it is told by a wonderful, wonderful writer. So it was all on the page. And one of the greatest delights you can have as an actor is to pick up a script and not be able to put it down, and then just get increasingly more excited about the prospect of playing this character that's coming to life in front of you. And of course, acting, like life, at least in my experience, is full of very little certainty and a lot of suspicion about maybe which way things go or what might happen here. And so you don't really know. But here we had Delia and Peter, and it was a great there, but I didn't bug you, and I didn't meet Peter until it was a few weeks into the process. So it was a relief when we first met Dr. Robos, who was one of your brilliant life-saving doctors. And she said, oh my gosh, that was Peter. And of course, I was really relieved because I really had no idea whether I was way off the mark or getting closer. It was still early in the process. So it was just a series of very fortunate, confluences, including working with Julianna, whom We had never worked together, we'd been friends, and it just felt right from the first moment. So it was an adventure that I was excited to begin with this company.
And I mean, it is a very strange feeling to play someone who is a famous person and alive and watching you play them. But I never felt intimidated or worried. First of all, Delia is very outspoken, so I assumed that she would tell me if I was doing something she didn't like. And once I remember when I fell down when I was trying to dance, and you said, "No, Julianna, actually," do you remember this in rehearsal? "It took me a really long time to get up, so I did this whole thing," and then
But then we cut it. We cut that.
Susan Stroman goes, "It can't be that long." I took a good 5 minutes.
Just so happens, getting up off the ground is really hard. I mean, I had to have physical therapy after this thing was over, and I remember being so proud that I could get up off the ground.
Right.
I just wanted to say that.
But there was another reason, I have to interject. There was another reason, because we were looking at it during the rehearsals, and there were some people there, and they said, "Oh, this is really making me so unhappy. Is she going to get up? Is she going to get up?" And so I spoke to Stro that night, and I said, "I think we have to
Get her
rethink.
off the floor.
Get her up.
She just
Get her up."
She just falls into Peter's arms now.
Yeah. No, but I have to say, what Peter said is that a lot of times when it's really good writing, it's really easy to do it because the writing is so good. It's right there for you. And the story is so vibrant. It just sort of, I feel like we drank it all in. We were lucky enough to do a 2-week workshop of it. And then, so by the time we got to proper rehearsals, it was in our skin. The words, everything was just in our skin. And what Peter and I kept saying, thank God we love each other, because the story doesn't work without one another. And God forbid I didn't, we're just so lucky because you can't not love each other in this play. So if it's ever performed again, make sure the actors love each other. But the thrill of it, I have never, one of your questions was, have you ever intertwined? I haven't experienced what Delia has gone through. But I don't need to, because I had read the memoir right away when it came out. I mean, side note, Delia and I, strangely, in 2021, met on the corner of 10th Street because our dogs were sniffing each other. True story, and it's such a great New York story. And that's the other part of this story is the play loves New York as much as we all love New York. And I think that's a real, it's the backdrop of this story is New York City in such a magnificent way. And so the excitement of doing it far outweighed the fear of getting it wrong. Although I did say to you, when you first said, "I want you to play me," I said, "Can we do a reading of it and you make sure whatever comes out of my mouth sounds right to you, because this play is so beautiful, I want it to be done right." And I really want, I said, I was like, no ego involved at all. If I start speaking and you go, "Oh dear God, this is a mistake," just tell me. And the truth is, it's such a beautiful, I mean, we're exhausted at the end of the day, but then I wake up and I can't wait to go back to work.
That's true.
Well, and also the beauty of it, aside from loving each other, which I know you do, the chemistry on stage is actually palpable. People will walk out and they'll say, "Oh my God, they have such chemistry."
Yeah.
And it's the right word. I mean, you're just so in sync with each other, and when we see the love story unfold and when we see the challenges unfold, there's just such a connection that it really is very heartwarming.
There was a young woman on the autograph line today after the show, and she said, "I have to tell you, I've seen the show now 4 times."
That's crazy.
And I said, "That's crazy."
I've had people write me that they've seen it 3 times.
Right.
Yeah.
And she said, "Now I know the play and I love your performances, but I just look at the audience. I watch the audience and seeing how it's affecting them. And then I love lingering after the show as people are exiting and just seeing these little stolen kisses between couples that have been together, I assume, for a while, or canoodling in a way, or looking at each other in a new way and connecting, and I thought that was, especially coming from a young person, that it was really moving. And also, with Delia being on the set in rehearsal every day, I have to believe that because you survived, we were not with someone who was sweating the small stuff and upset about things that weren't really worth being upset about, that you were this really warm, supportive, delighted presence that was generous.
I actually was, because I'd never had an experience, a creative experience like this. Susan Stroman is such a magical director, and the two of you were so perfectly matched. And Kate and Peter Francis James.
The other two.
Luggage, our other two actors. So that I was feeling just, just surrounded by love and just so happy about the way it was happening. It was an extraordinary creative time. But I am a complete nervous wreck in general. So I wouldn't say it actually calmed me down or anything, but I did have the smoothest, most exciting.
I didn't see any eye rolls.
No.
When you go out and do something and Delia was having, oh.
No, never. I never had a moment like that.
I know.
No, I know, that's so rare.
But it is.
But when I witnessed you and Peter sort of whispering to one another at rehearsal, and I was always wondering, what were you thinking? What were you saying? Did Peter like it? Did Peter not like it? Did you like it? Did you not like it? It was the sweetest thing. You were always sitting together, and there was a little whispering going on, and
Should we have Japanese tonight?
Maybe it was that. It could have been that, but I was worried. Oh my God, what's going on? What are they talking about?
He was having,
Is he here?
the whole thing is completely.
Is Peter here
in the audience?
He's not here. He has the flu. I'm sorry to say. But
how did he
has
feel?
come so much to the show because, well, he's a retired psychiatrist. So if he weren't retired, we could never have the show because his personal emails could not be spoken in front of an audience. And so he's having the greatest retirement of his life. I mean, he goes to the theater and watches this show put on. And he was just
that it's all about him.
He was fascinated by it. I mean, in the middle of tech, I don't even know how to describe tech. It's so boring. It's just figuring out the lights and the sound, and I'm just like, everyone's reeling from it. And this is so interesting.
He was a good sport throughout it. I think he enjoys it. I think he loves the way you portray him.
He loved it, and he loves Julianna.
He loves the way you do it. Yeah. All right, another question. The play goes to lots of extremes, certainly when you're very ill in hospital 2 scene. And then it goes into these joyous moments that are just heaven, which is life, hills and valleys life. How do you, Peter and Julianna, find yourselves on this roller coaster? And then when the show is over and you're exhausted, how do you, bring it down?
I learned a long time ago on ER where I played a suicidal woman that if I didn't leave my feelings at work, I wouldn't have a personal life.
Oh, how interesting.
I just remember coming home from work. I probably was 25 years old, and I was a wreck. And I put my key in the door, and I was like, you need to make a decision right now. You can act and have a life, or you can just act and be miserable. Like, how are you going to do this? And so I think from years and years and years of playing characters who had this emotional life, I've learned how to not really leave it at work. I'm not going to lie. There's been nights where I get in the car at the end, and I just have to let it all out, because it's very hard to start crying and then have to stop and be happy.
That's what I mean.
The emotion is still in you, and there's, so sometimes there's a car ride home where I just let it out. But for the most part, the joy at the end of the play is so much bigger than I've never once thought, actually, of it. Strangely, it's the writing. It's so good. I've never had to get somewhere. The writing takes me there. Like, as an actor, usually you have to prepare to get somewhere. But in this play, the writing takes you on the journey. At least as an actor, for me, every word I say takes me to the emotional place I need to be. And so it depends. Different nights are different,
And the audience plays a part, doesn't it?
The audience plays a huge part.
The chemistry between the audience and the actors on stage is a very important part in the energy of the show or the pace of the show. I mean, I've observed that over many, many years, that you get these ions that come at you.
We feel
or
all
they
the
don't.
energy.
Yeah, and you feel it.
We feel all of it. We also see all of it.
So I have another question. Oh, did you want to address that or not so much?
No,
all right, we're moving on.
all right.
Okay, so
Fortunately, when I get down at the end of onto the blanket at the very end of the show, I don't get up until it's a blackout. So I'm relieved about that.
that's fine. And there's a dog.
And with a little help from Charlie the dog.
Yeah, there's a dog. So my next question is that we all know this play is about second chances in life and in love. And my question to you is, have there been moments in your lives, we know your second chance in life, have there been moments in your lives where you've had the opportunity to either take a second chance or pass on that second chance, either with regret or glee? But have you thought about second chances? Because that's what we're dealing with here every night.
I have. Well, you've been married forever.
I have.
You're in a good solid.
But
Well, it
we
doesn't
met when
have to be about love.
when I was 18, and I thought I had blown it already. Fortunately, we met again about 7 years later, and it all worked out. But I feel like you have a better answer to this question than
I mean, I think I really felt, when I was about 35, I had broken up with a long-term relationship, and I put my armor on, and I was like, I'm good. I do not want to get married. I do not want to have kids. I actually don't want to belong to anyone, because I sort of felt like stifled for a long time, and I was having so much fun just living my life my way. And then I met my husband, and I'll never forget our third date. He looked at me, and he had pulled out the chair for me, and I went and sat on the other chair. Completely oblivious that chair was for me. And he stood there, and he said, okay, we need to raise the bar for you a little bit. And as that romance started to bloom, I realized, he was like, there's no, like, the shoe's not gonna drop. This is who I am. There are nice guys out there. And that was I was like, oh, I gotta take my armor off and just accept this lovely human being wants to be in my life. And so, you know, I was 40 when I got married, and 41 when I had a baby. So that changed my, you know, that was not my trajectory. So maybe, yeah, I had a second chance at love and life.
I would say so. So have you experienced the kind of friendships that Delia had as her support system? In the play, there are friends that come and are so amazingly important in your life, but also in your recovery and during this whole journey. The friends and the family really mean a lot, I think, to everyone that watches this, because we all have to depend on people, even if we don't want to, during our lives. And I'm curious to know how these friendships in all of your lives, I know, have changed the way you think about friendship. I mean, I myself have a very small group of close friends. I have a big group of wonderful acquaintances, but I don't have many close friends. I know who I can depend on, and I hope people know who can depend, you know, that they can depend on me. But there were many friends in your story, and they each played a different role in keeping you going and keeping you after all of this happened. And I just think friendship is an interesting subject to think about. We're talking about love, we're talking about illness, we're talking about challenges, but friendship is something that is such a gift in people's lives. I'm just curious how you might think about that.
There was a beautiful line that Delia, we had to cut it. The play is an hour 40, no intermission. There were things we had to cut. But there was a line I used to say, my girlfriends got me through, and later they became my warriors. Remember that beautiful line? I loved that line. And that is a gift if you have friends like that. I mean, I definitely do. We call each other old reliables, because you know how busy we all are, and then someone texts and they're right away respond. And I think it's what life should be about, is these friendships. I mean, it takes a village, right?
Yeah.
I really love, I had sisters, so I think I was prepared to find people who weren't sisters, but I could be very close to, because sisters, that's a whole nother thing. You know, that's, but it really prepared me for friendship. But when you get sick, you have to make choices about who you need to go on that journey with you. It's not a party. And so you have to be very clear. You have to recognize which of your friends are the ones that are going to be great in the room with you, which ones are going to make you anxious. And you have to be ruthless about it, you know.
Yeah.
And if your friends love you, they just accept that. It's not, but friendship was a huge part of my, both when I fell in love with Peter, I got so anxious, I was calling my girlfriends up right and left, all of them. But when I got sick, then it became this group that were my warriors.
Yeah. I think it's a big part of the play, too, that I don't know that people expect, you know. It's a nice sort of little beaumont at the end of it all. So we talked about New York City a little bit, and one of my questions was, especially the Village, obviously 10th Street in the Village, and you both live there. But do you all have special memories about the city, either growing up or living here now, or when you're not here, what do you miss? New York City is, I mean, whether we think it's in great shape now or not, that's a whole other conversation I won't have. But our memories and what was, you know, what really formed all of us being in New York City. You didn't come from New York City, you're from California.
I think New Yorkers are born all over the country, and they come here and they say, oh, this is who I am.
And this is where I should be.
Yeah, that you find out by arriving and being here that you're a New Yorker. And with me, I had lived in Greenwich Village just after college. I went to Barnard, and after Connecticut, I transferred to Barnard. And I lived in the Village on Cornelia Street, and
Oh my God,
my
my
whole
father
life,
lived on.
don't tell me you lived on Cornelia.
Another Beshert moment.
No, this.
My father lived on Cornelia Street
Oh,
when he was
really?
in college at Columbia.
What
But go on.
address?
This has been going on since the beginning of the play.
No, it really
is-
has. Because we sat down together the first day, and Julianna looked, oh, you're left-handed too. And then Julianna's tap
You're
danced. She
left-handed?
said, I think this is hard for me because I sort of do sports with my right hand, and I do that too. I don't know anyone else in the world that is both left and right-handed that way.
And then we both gave the exact same gift opening night
Yeah,
without
we
knowing.
did. That's
Frisbees that say left on 10th. Neither of us knew.
Wait, what about the Stones? We did a ritual.
And then-
that was incredible.
Anyway, sorry, but go
Right.
back to New York.
Okay, back
Anyway,
to
We digress.
I always wanted to get back to the Village, and when I got back in 2002, I thought, oh, okay, here I am. I'm on 10th Street, and I never want to leave this place. And it makes me happy to go out on the street every single day. Every kind of person lives there, every kind of dog. It's just the greatest. So that's, my heart belongs to New York. It really does.
and it plays a big part in the play. And you see the beautiful projections of Washington Square and the band shell and the streets. It's a very important part of the play. Peter?
Peter.
Well,
Peter?
I was born in New York, and from our apartment, the apartment we have now, I can see the fire escape in the window of my very first apartment that I had forever. It was a tiny one-room studio on West 57th Street between 8th and 9th. Bella Bartok used to live in the building, but not when I was there. And I was robbed there. I stopped a guy from mugging me there on the 12th floor, and I had all my early experiences, all the Broadway shows I did from Hair and Grease and The Real Thing, and it's the same neighborhood. It's the same zip code. I mean, thank goodness the convention center's not there anymore. It's nobody. That wasn't much of a loss, but some of the corners are exactly the same. Some of the corners have changed, but each one just reminds me of something that happened on that street, or when I was younger, walking down past Studio 54, coming home from the theater, or going into Studio 54, I just feel absolutely lucky every single day. And when we were living in Los Angeles, I always felt like I was waiting for my life to start. And I could go out for a cup of coffee and I feel like I'm living, you know? And I have the same feeling I had when I was a kid. starting my career and, going to open calls, number 2,222, and singing 4 bars and inching forward for 8 hours until you get into the room, and it's just the greatest city on the earth, on the planet, I think. And it is a love letter to New York, which I think is so exciting to be able to tell this story to you, to our audience in New York, and for us to recognize ourselves in it and the city and celebrate that. It's great.
It's great. So the real life Peter Rudder, is a Jungian that we learn in our play, and lives by those philosophies which are those of confluence, totality, and beschert, which is a large part of his character and also a large part of this play. Is there anything that you've learned from that philosophy that you will adopt into your daily life?
Who, me?
Well, I'm both of
Wow.
you. Both of you. I thought that was a good question.
Yes, it was.
Very
It
good.
is.
Very good question.
That's why
We're very impressed.
He was just excited that you were asking him that.
Well, it's funny because Peter gave me MDR, as it's called, Minimum Daily Requirement, or Memories, Dreams, and Reflections, which is essentially a biography of Jung. And it's power. The play is powerful, and the tiny microscopic bit of Jungian thought that I'm beginning to grasp is also powerful because it gives permission for you to perceive coincidence or confluence or beschert in a different way, that it's something to be learned from. As Peter has said, Jungians are meaning junkies. They're interested in the meaning of that, why that happened then and with whom. And also giving great power and significance to your unconscious life or your dream life. And so it's opened up an avenue in my thinking that gives me permission too to regard these extraordinary. You published that Verizon piece on my birthday.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
And my brother's wife, her senior year roommate at Barnard was your little sister Hallie.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's just a lot of confluence that you can discount, but it gives me delight not to discount it, but to examine it and sort of embrace it. So that, in a microscopic way, that's been interesting to me.
I think it is interesting. I mean, it's a philosophy, but it's a way of life.
Well, he says in it, when that's so weird to say, when Delia, when the character, it says, I'm not sure I want to do this. I'm scared to get involved in a relationship because I don't want to risk losing someone again. It was too hard. And Peter says to her, totality. I want to say I've lived my life in totality. And he explains what that is. It's like a full lunar eclipse. Partial lunar eclipse isn't totality. And just the idea that it doesn't matter what age you are, we're still living. And in every breath of life, there should be totality. You should be experiencing that. And it's a very different way to look at life in an age-obsessed society that we live in, and a culture where getting old seems to be a bad thing. Instead, it's a celebration of every moment and a privilege to be on the earth and able to breathe. And it's changed my way of thinking so much in terms of, I've always been an optimist, but I suddenly feel much more comfortable on the planet with the idea of what totality can bring me if I open my heart to it.
So in fact, it has affected
100%.
the way you think. And
it has.
Yeah. And I think also the fact that this play is, I love stories about women. Most of my work has been about women, but women of a certain age now. And I think that there aren't many wonderful stories that are presented, not romantic stories, and stories about, the strength and the bravery of women of a certain age, which I am. You are. You're getting there.
I'm getting there.
And I think we're very proud of telling that story. And we're proud of telling it in a way that is joyous. And yes, we all have the highs and lows in life. We can't escape it. But it's how you react to the highs and lows in life.
It's all about
And I
your
think
reaction.
that's the message. So we have 2 adorable pups in the show, and I know the answer, but you might be interested in the answer. How is it working with 2 adorable pups on stage?
Yeah, what is that?
Great.
Well, we're all dog lovers. That's the good news.
Yeah, they're adorable and sweet, and they bring joy. And every night, you know, the first time Honey comes out on the stage, you just hear the audience goes, "Oh." There's something. I mean, she's such a pro. She fell asleep today on the bench when I was like, like, that's nice.
She did?
She fell fast asleep.
If you-
She does.
Put her
You
to
rub her
sleep.
ear just right, and just on the top of her head, she just goes out like a light.
Is that why you always touch her? Because
Pardon?
I notice you reach over and touch her. Are
It's
you
her
putting to
favorite
sleep?
spot.
Right. You know, and occasionally I earn a little lick, which is big from Nessa. And Charlie, who I'm completely besotted with, was living on the street 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And he's the sweetest.
rescue.
He's
He
got
just wants
this
to
crazy
please.
underbite. and he is so sweet in that. And Bill Berloni, our wonderful animal trainer, who's legendary and does all the Annies and Wickeds and
Wickeds.
things, and has worked with him very well, and has gotten him to. He will sit down and while we're at the end of the play, he's supposed to sit. He sits on the blanket. And he just sits there like this.
Yeah, he just.
And it's like, I am not going back to the street. I am not going back to the street. I'm going to sit here till the cows come home. I'm not going back to the street. It's okay, Charlie, you can come over here. Oh my God, he's got a treat. I got to go over there.
So cute.
You do that
And it's
very
just-
well.
and I love him. But just the fact that he was abandoned, you know. And
Now he's on Broadway.
And then at the end of the show, right, and now he's on Broadway.
He may get a Tony.
I know, it's another, talk about second chances.
That's right.
And at the end of the show, we have this ritual. Julianna has gotten the most spectacular dog treats. They're brisket. It is
It's beef
all
brisket.
I can do. They're dog treats, but it is all I can do not to eat it. And when I am going to, and I won't tell anybody about it, because it smells so good. And the dogs, at the end of the show, said, "End of the show," and they both go shooting into Juliana's dressing room, or she's not here. Let's go to his dressing room.
I got him a bag too.
She
so now
got
they're
me a
like-
bag too, so they both sit there like this. And my God, they'll take your fingers off.
Well, it's just joyful, you know. And at the end of the play, when Delia's been through this intense journey, and Peter comes out with, we had to get a new pup with Charlie, and there's never not been a performance where he hasn't completely licked my face off. Just comes running, I go, "Charlie," and he just lick, he's just so happy.
How am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing?
They might hire you at Disney if you keep this up.
Pardon?
They might hire you at Disney if you keep this up. It's so good. All right.
I
On
love
that
them.
joyous note, which it's true, the dogs do bring us all joy in
Oh,
our
my
real
goodness.
lives, and certainly in this show.
Yeah.
I know that there are questions that you may have, I believe. Does somebody have questions?
Oh, they wrote them down, and
And
where did
where
those
are they?
papers go?
Hello. I'll let you answer that.
Oh, here they are. Here's
Oh,
the papers.
now I can see by doing this. Okay.
you.
It's been bought for movies, but will it be a movie? That is a really insane question that no one in the world can answer.
Okay, these are good. I think this is to anyone who wants to answer it, but I would love to know more about the Jewish aspects of the play. I guess we gave it away with Beshert a little bit.
Share it. It's really just Peter, my Peter, was reading my email, and he just suddenly found himself saying Beshert, which we all know what that means. It means a special fit or match or comfort or fate that you've been looking for your whole life. And he felt that. And so, you know, we've all embraced that as the way we feel about this entire production, really, that it's all but shared for all of us. That is really, I would say, almost the only part of this play which, I mean, Peter and I were both raised in Jewish families. I was not raised in a religious home at all. My mother said, religion is the cause of all wars. And that was that, you know? And I was sent to school on Jewish holidays. I was the only kid in the class. I was like sitting alone in my desk. And my parents had been immigrants. I mean, their parents were immigrants in New York. And I think getting to LA, it was a time when they wanted to assimilate very much. So that was my childhood. He had a bar mitzvah when he was young, only his father was so mean he didn't have a party. And he's the only boy I have ever heard of who had a bar mitzvah and no party. So anyway, but he's more, you know, more traditional and everything. But it's not been a part of our life, religion. It isn't.
But when
we're
you get
Jewish
married,
culturally.
When you get married on stage,
yeah,
he
insisted on crushing the glass, and you know, we were married actually by a chaplain at the hospital, and Peter was he was a little upset. There wasn't a rabbi, so we just had to get married. So, but our friend presided, but
right.
His papers are signed, and he was thrown by that. I mean, but I don't know. Jewish is my culture, my voice, my humor, my life, the love of books. It's completely envelops both Peter and me, but not actually religiously.
Next question. I saw a preview of the play, and it's wonderful. Now that you're officially opened on Broadway, Julianna and Peter, as theater actors, how do you plan to keep the play exciting, fresh, for yourselves and for the characters with many more performances ahead? That's a good question.
That's our job. I mean, it's what weighs on you. It's what, you know, it sort of defines your entire week. And having enough energy and being in a state of mind, and there's nothing worse, no worse, well, maybe there are worse feelings, but there's no worse feelings when you're doing something like that, when you haven't really delivered what you might, or what you can, or what you want to. Because every night there's different people in the seats. You know, wouldn't it be nice to not care quite so much and just be able to phone it in? But either you can or you can't, and I don't think either of us can do that. So it's wonderful to care that much and to have the opportunity to go out and step out on a Broadway stage 8 times a week for a whole new group of people telling a story that you are passionate about. And there are new people in the seats every night, so the show is different every night. And so it's not like you're rehashing what happened. If you think for a moment what you did last week or the prior performance, you're done. You can't have your mind anywhere else but where you are at the moment with
it's also a very interesting format because we break the fourth wall, and I'm the first person to do that. On stage, I immediately speak to the audience. And so if I am not engaging that audience into being interested in what I have to say, I'm not doing my job. So I get excited because every night it's a new audience. So I just get more and more excited about telling this story to more people. And as Peter said, it is our job. It's also why theater is so different than television acting or film acting, is that it is a live thing. We can't say, hold on, I messed up the line, take 2. I mean, the other night, I am very specific about the lines, and when a novelist has written your play, you listen to every word. And for some reason, I say to Peter, you know, I'm supposed to say to him, you know Wordsworth, because he's just recited a Wordsworth poem. I don't know where it came out from, but I looked at him on stage and I said, you know Shakespeare. But that's the beauty of theater, because Peter immediately said, I do, but I love Wordsworth. Like, it just...
I said, I know a little Shakespeare, but I love Wordsworth.
It was so great, and it just, every night, something little like that. It's like, I'm a human being, and I'm gonna mess up sometimes, but you depend on each other on stage. That's the beauty of it. So, like, I remember one night that it was the World Series, and for some reason, we're so used to packed audiences, and Peter and I have this scene where we jump under the covers, and he goes, what is up with the audience? Because there weren't a lot of people.
It was a huge empty patch in the middle of the
orchestra. And I looked at him and I said, we're gonna do it for the people who are here. And he went, yes! And like, we just like got out of that bed.
That was so delightful for you to say that in the moment, because I mean, I would have gotten there, I know that, it's true. But the fact that you said it so confidently and enthusiastically, yes, we will. And maybe they'll fill in the seats, they'll come down. They can move down stage a little.
But it's gonna happen, you know? Not every night's gonna be packed to the rafters. Some nights, but you know what? I mean, you do it for the one person sitting in the audience, and that's the truth of it. And
to explain those empty seats, those seats had been purchased, but wives couldn't get their husbands off the couch
World
for the
Series,
second game of the World
game.
Series. So that's, I mean, not wives, maybe there were husbands who couldn't get their wives off.
Yes. But I could see that our other two actors, Kate McCluggage and Peter Francis James, because I'm out first, so I'm on stage for a good 10 minutes before anyone else is on stage. So I have a good view of what's going on. And I thought, they are not gonna like this. And so on my way home that night, I texted, we're on a chain together, and I texted the cast and I said, World Series, that's why there were gaps in the seats. The audience that was there loved it. And Kate was relieved. She was like, oh, thank God.
Right. Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, that's...
And I think I have to warn you that election and Halloween, you might have the same thing.
I know.
We're already working on
Or
that.
it'll be really packed because no one wants to have to watch the election.
Next question. Delia, this is for you. There are two possible reasons for the title. One, going home, you take a left on 10th Street, or is it two, that you were left on 10th Street when your first husband died?
Yes, the great thing about a title is if it has metaphor in it. So yes, left on 10th is my way home. I was left on 10th when Jerry died, and then my life took left turns, unexpected turns. So left on 10th fits every single thing I need in that to tell in that story.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you about strange thing about titles. My father, my parents were raising writers, so as you know in the play when Julianna says, my father said every time I said something funny, my dad said that's a great line, write it down. He also said that's a great title, write it down. And I have been collecting titles my whole life without having any idea what they would go to. I probably had titles when I was 8 years old. So Left on 10th, I had that for 10 years. Oh,
Before you lived on 10th Street?
Before I knew. I was living on 10th Street. I had the title. I just had no idea where it was going to go.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
That's very Bashert. Just wanted to say that.
Bringing it back to Bashert. As two millennials, as two millennials who have seen the show multiple times, thank you, we've been wondering, has anybody dropped the Frisbee yet?
Oh. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it sometimes ends up in the audience. And then somebody will usually throw it back.
The audience seems to love it.
Yes.
It's only happened a couple times.
Yeah,
We're getting too good at it. We should get it back in the audience.
Oh, I'm sure it'll get there.
This is interesting. Sally from live streaming in Melbourne, Australia. Julianna, it's clear that you are in your element doing this play. Have your nerves settled? Are you enjoying every moment? And what's your favorite part of the process? Why does she say you're nervous?
What?
Never mind.
Have my nerves settled?
Yeah.
Oh, I think because I think I said in some interview
That you were nervous?
that I was nervous to be on stage again because it's been 18 years since I've done a play. My nerves have settled completely. I get excited. I mean, I always get nervous before the play. I go out on backstage when we have the theater. We have a lot of traditions, and they say 5 minutes till you need to be out there. And at 5 minutes, I go out there, and Peter and I have our own little thing that we do, and then I have to fist bump all the wardrobe people that are standing there, and then I go on stage, backstage, and I listen to the audience, and I do all my tap numbers back there. I tap dance in the play. I was nervous about that too, but now I'm not.
That's because of Susan Stroman, who is the original choreographer of Life.
Yeah.
So she had to have a little dancing.
And if you're going to learn tap from anyone, Susan Stroman's the person. But so I always go out there 5 minutes before, and then I can feel my nerves, but I want to feel my nerves.
Yeah.
It's good to feel a little nervous. And then when I hear the phone ring, which is my cue to go out when I hear hello, I get so excited. So I just love it. I love doing this play. I love it.
So this question, how did the casting come to be? Did you audition? Well, we can answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no,
I have no idea how the casting came about.
Well, we just knew
We just thought about you.
We thought about you, and we knew you'd be right.
And
So
then
we were in love with you.
Yes,
and
but we
were
had to
in
have
love
you
with
do
Peter,
together.
Too, and then we thought,
We have to see you
Magic.
together.
yeah, that was all we.
And the chemistry was there.
Yeah.
Was that
So
done
you
and done?
guys knew. Another Bashert moment.
Yeah, we're good at that.
We did.
Here's a good question. What's next for each of you, and has this influenced what you might want to pursue?
We have 2 shows tomorrow.
That's what's next.
I just want to enjoy being where I'm at right now.
In the
I
present.
think in this business, the second you sit down and talk about a project you're working on in the moment, the next question is always, and what's coming up? And it's a strange way of trying to catch up with yourself. And I feel very caught up and happy right where I am. If I start talking about things that might come, like when Delia said, yes, the movie rights were bought. You know, I could talk about 5 different TV shows that I'm involved in. They'll never see the light of day until the day I'm in it, and then they'll say, and what's next? So I love just being in the moment right now.
I think that's good philosophy for life.
Yeah.
You know, we should just be in the moment because we can't change what happened, and who knows what's coming. So let's be here for this moment.
Yeah.
Do you have any other questions? The cards are finished, but if you do, I think we're still good.
I just wanted to say thank you for this play.
Thank you for the play.
Well,
Thank you for the play.
thank you. Thank you.
Big deal. You met before. My mom was in the hospital at the same time you were, and she was not a candidate for bone marrow transplant. She unfortunately passed away. Gail treated both of you at the same time.
Oh my goodness. Did you hear her?
You know what? I can't actually understand you.
She said that Gail Robos was treating her mother at the
Oh,
same
really?
time you were there.
Seriously? Is your mother okay?
No, she died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My mom was not a candidate for a bone marrow transplant. You and I spoke about this.
Oh, right.
I'm the one who talked about the shoes and the black shoes.
You're the person who said that I didn't have her wearing the right shoes, Dr. Robos. Correct. I got an email on that. I remember that. So then I had to write Dr. Robos and say, apparently we don't have the right shoes on you, but I've seen you in high heels. And then she said, oh, yeah, that was because you had seen her after she had surgery. Yeah, so it was an entire set of
Conversation.
emails about Dr. Robos.
Okay, any other questions?
That was hysterical.
Oh my God.
Play just was very personal to me, and it like helped me to sort of get back to when my mom was there and everything.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, I hope you'll all come and see it if you haven't, and tell everyone you ever knew. Okay? Thank you. I think that's it. I think we're good. I don't know.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Right.